That's a great story, man. I almost laugh of yeah, that's great. Actually, you said something very interesting, Mark. You're half British, half French, and you don't stop moving right now. What are you doing?
I'm trying to
kill Blair Witch Project or what? It's like fucking hell. Am I going to see bloody hands on a wall in a minute?
I've got ADD.
If anybody just listening to this, Mark's moving around all over the place. It's like, Andy's got this really sinister beard that seems to be the trend at the moment. That I would have one, but I can't grow one.
I think you think it will suit you well if you have this big beard. I think, Tim, it's a new look.
It's kind of it's like I was at the gym last night. It seems like every other guy had now got a bushy beard, and it's shit for cunnilingus. I'll tell you.
Okay.
That's just fucking kill the conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, so I wanted to say you are half French, half British. So it means you have the best out of both nationalities.
No, it means I stink of garlic and I'm shit in bed.
No, that's the other way around. But you have a good sense of humor and you are amazing in bed. It's a hint.
Can you make me a T-shirt? Can I wear that? That'd be great. People might believe me.
You should have one. By the way, Tim, I don't. I think you're also okay in bed because you're British, but I don't know. That's my take on it.
No, I'm terrible in bed. I sleep appallingly. Seriously. True story. 2 nights ago, I didn't sleep very well, and then last night I got a really busy day today. So I said to my wife last night, I really need to sleep, and she said, "Why don't you take one of these? It's like an over-the-counter. It's like the stuff that's in NyQuil or what do they call it in the UK? You may be able to help me out, Mark. I can't remember now, but it's like a cold thing." Viagra, Viagra, yeah, same thing, makes you sleep. Anyway, but it's like an over-the-counter sleep medicine. So I took one of these things. There could have been a fucking nuclear holocaust last night. I wouldn't have woken up. And this morning, for 3 hours, I was like a fucking zombie. Honestly, I drank an entire pot of coffee, and I'm like, "What did you give me?" She probably gave me herpes at night, and I didn't even notice.
Can you check right now just to see? Okay, anyway. So no,
I am doing. You can't see from there.
I can't see your hands, which is the most interesting part.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Let's move on because I'm happy that you can sleep well, Tim. That's very, very reassuring.
I don't want to sleep. I don't want to sleep like that again. To be honest with you, I'd rather fucking stay up all night, wondering what the fucking hell you're up to.
Okay. So, Mark, welcome to the show, right? At this stage, so we are just wasted, I think, 10 minutes talking about Tim, like always. But, it's...
Wasted? How could that be wasted?
It's not wasted, but, because I've actually listened to your interview with Tony T. Garden, and I was so impressed about Tony, the way that he's just introduced the show. There was a rhythm, there was pace. He said, to his listeners, please subscribe, please... do your rating, rate us in iTunes and all this kind of stuff. Leave us our comments, So at this stage, because we've just wasted 10 minutes, I believe everyone is gone now. So what do we do? Huh?
We get naked.
We get naked. Okay, so
that usually
sounds good to me. Okay. We get naked and we scream at a chair or something together, and then we wrestle in front of a fire. In a sort of D.E. Lawrence Sons and Lovers kind of a way.
Okay.
I don't think anybody. Neither of you two are going to get that.
Welcome, Mark. Welcome, Mark, to this show. So, Mark, I'm so happy you're here. Right. So you're a coach, you're a public speaker, you are an author, you work for Movember, and you are a cool guy. When I started this coaching journey myself, I tried to look at cool people, and guess what? I first found Tim, so this guy over there.
So that was fucked. So he then went to the box to be cool, yeah.
And then I found you actually on your website, and I like actually your approach. I like the way that you are also swearing, but you are very smart with your approach. You had this online CV, you had this small animation of yourself explaining who you are, and I like the way that you were interacting. And I immediately contacted you, I think 2 years ago, and actually for the very first time we met in person in Paris a week ago, right?
Yeah,
we had this. We share a bit, so it's
yeah, and you totally fucked up my life by introducing me to a new concept which I've been checking out for the past week, and now I'm just all over the place. But yeah, thanks for that. And,
what was that? What was that? What was the concept?
It was threesome. I'm introducing to threesome, but don't worry about that.
Oh. Okay. Oh, that's fair enough. Why wasn't I invited?
Yeah, you know what?
Just because I'm ugly and bald and old.
it's one of those things.
I can add experience.
Anyway, so go on, Max. Sorry.
No, it's cool. Yeah, it's always one of those weird things when you actually meet someone in person and you say they're not an absolute bunch of weirdos, and they're actually, just as nice as you thought they were. I mean, I never know. You might have just been like a sex pest by the time I met you. But it's 2 years ago, I think.
I am, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, that's okay.
But no, it's been kind of, I've been kind of following your show as well. So I knew what to expect by accepting to come on the show and being the conversation, which I love. It's a different style.
It's nice. It's nice. You're nice with us, so that's good. But tell us a little bit about yourself, because I think you have a very interesting story. You have this book that I read, and I actually read it. I didn't read your books, Tim, but I read Mark's book, which is called.
I haven't read my books. I haven't read my books. I do this shit. Yeah.
But which is called "It's Not You, It's Me," right? And you really. I like it a lot because it's very easy read, I think, but it introduces lots of coaching tools and this coaching, not mentality, but way of seeing life, I guess, for people who are not used to that, I guess, for external people. And I like the way that it's sometimes I have a very hard time to explain what we do. And I think you summarize very well in your book. So I would like to, if you can, just to tell us your story a little bit, how you came to coaching, if you can.
Well, first of all, thank you. I think you and my mum are the two people who might have read the book and enjoyed it, so I appreciate that.
Actually, your mum didn't finish it. We spoke to her.
I'm sure she didn't.
She got halfway
through. My mum was an English teacher and literature, so I can guarantee you she probably must have thought, yeah.
Fucking hell, don't give any of my books then. She's going through an apoplectic fit with my grammar.
So wow, an interesting one. I guess the sort of the short version would be that I had my whole life figured out when I was a kid. I was sure I was going to be an actor. That was my goal. I was a kid. Everyone, I just told everyone I was going to be an actor. I was going to be this. And I grew up in France. And Olivier, you might agree or disagree. The French system isn't exactly geared towards kids who've got a combination of dyslexia and probably a heavy load of ADD. And had I been born 10 years later, I'd probably been heavily medicated my entire youth. And so I really, really struggled at school in the sense that I just hated it. But what I loved was performing and acting and all that stuff. And anyway, and I remember that I still remember to this day, I was on a film set as an extra on this The Count of Monte Cristo. And this actor that I was there, was hanging out with, he seemed old at the time, basically told me, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to become an actor. And he's like, don't do it. That's a fucking terrible idea. That is the worst thing you could ever do. And I remember as a kid, just going, oh yeah, he's probably right. That's probably a terrible idea. And so,
who was it?
Oh mate, he was just like an extra. He wasn't like an actor.
Sorry, I thought.
And I remember when someone, no offense to extras, but I remember one of my friends said why the hell did you listen to an extra? Why didn't you talk to Anyway, so that then shifted everything for me, and I thought, well, if I'm not going to make it as an actor, what the hell am I going to do? And I decided to go into business, which was a terrible idea. And I went to study business at university. I hated it. I remember within the first week, I saw the counter, and I was like, I've got to do something. I've got to change class. And she was like, this is the advice that she said, almost verbatim. And it was, everyone hates their courses. Just get on with it. And when you're done, you can go and do what you want. And so when that happened, I was just like, well, okay. And she said, oh no, the best advice she or he, I don't remember now, but I think it was he said, and try and do as many things as you like on the side. And that was it. Then began my obsession of just doing things I love on the side of whatever my main thing was. And so anyway, so I did loads of stuff. And then the kind of classic story of the sort of, the hero's journey of like overcoming obstacles, this dyslexic kid who always thought he was never going to make anything. I ended up getting a 2-1 at university. I was the first in my direct family to get a 2-1. I got a job, like what I thought was my dream job, like 4 days after graduating. I was like on this fast.
Can I just add to anybody listening, because in America they wouldn't know what a 2-1 is. A 2-1 is not quite brilliant.
Exactly, and it's not. And
no, it's true. A 2-1, a 1-1's as good as you get. A 2-1 is pretty fucking good.
Yeah. No, I know, and the good news is that it's not as shit as what I thought it was going to be, which was like a third or something. So I'm on this trajectory, and I'm landing this job in what I thought was a dream job, and suddenly, fucking hell, just breaks loose. I'm basically an executive bitch for about 6 months, getting abused by people with massive egos and no emotional intelligence, and I stay in this job for about 2 years.
A bit like today, then.
Yeah.
With me. Sorry, I couldn't resist that. I'm sorry. No. Carry on. You just get used to me butting in.
Yeah, it's just abusing people. That's his style as a coach, by the way.
Yeah, no, but it's and so I think it's one of those cliche moments where I woke up and I was like, what the fuck am I doing in my life? And I quit the job. I broke up with the relationship I was at the time. It was going tits anyway, and left Peru. I was living in Peru at the time, and came back, and that's when I hit a bit of a rock bottom, like a bit of a bit of.
I need to come in. You need to back up. How the fuck did we get to Peru? Seriously, that to me is something like, wow, you were living in Peru. It's like, well, I did this, and then I left Peru. I mean, it's like, how the fuck did we get to...
Oh, mate. Well, okay. I didn't know you had, like, all day.
Like, how did you get to Peru?
Okay. So, so, as soon as I get asked to recruit for this job, I apply for it, I get this job, and they basically... I lived 4 to 6 months in different countries. So my first post was in Lithuania, where I lived in Vilnius, where I met Daniel Craig in an Irish bar.
Oh, fucking hell, now we're talking. Now this is it. You're missing out all the fucking... Don't mention Daniel Craig. I can't let my wife listen to this. She I'm not going to say what she would do to the... She just melts with Daniel Craig. So hang on. So we're back up. Lithuania, really interesting. Daniel Craig, really interesting. Peru. Let's go through this. Don't brush through this shit.
Yeah. He hated that. He just told you that he hated it. But anyway.
Yeah, no. I think it's really interesting.
I could do a whole show about my first job because it was an insane experience. I mean, fresh out of university, I was a dish pig at university. I was like a waiter. I was a barman. I did all these kind of side jobs at the side to help me finance my uni, with the help of my grandmother. And suddenly I'm in this job where I basically get cash and it's all pocket money. Everything's expensed for. I get a driver. We got phones paid for. We got the accommodation. We got a cook. I mean, it's just this insane environment. We're all young. We're all super smart. Well, not me, but everyone else is fucking creative and super smart. And it's like super incestuous. Everyone's shagging everyone. And you end up living in this...
Fucking for the English market, for the American market, that they're going to think carpets or something. So shagging means fucking, basically. Sorry, go on.
Oh yeah,
we only have 7 listeners, but 6 of them are American.
You can be my translator. And so I'm in Vilnius. That's again, meet Daniel Craig, and then I'm shipped off to Kazakhstan, where I lived there for 6 months.
Did you meet Borat?
So you know what? I don't want to burst your bubble, but actually Borat was filmed in Romania.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, it wasn't filmed in Kazakhstan, and he was actually offered by President Nazarbayev to go and visit, but he never accepted it. So I'm here. I arrive in Kazakhstan. My first real experience in this crazy sort of Central Asia, and that is still to this day the country that was the biggest culture shock. I don't know, but like the biggest disorienting event. I mean, we're talking, it was winter, so minus 40 degrees. The ratio of women to men is around 7 women to 3 men. So you walk out in the street, you go in a bar, it's fucking ridiculous. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. It's like all the guys, you all hang around bars, everyone comes and chats to you, and the guys hate you, the local guys hate you. You're walking around, I felt like I was going to get either shanked or raped by like basically prison.
Have you?
No, that would have been a great story though.
I'll be back in a minute. I'm just on Google. Cheap flights to Kazakhstan, basically, I'm typing in.
Actually, I've been to Kazakhstan 3 years ago, and I didn't have that.
Oh, shut up, you. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I suppose you've met Daniel Craig as well.
No, I met his stunt double, remember?
Yeah, because he's not fucking come on the podcast like you promised
come.
it would.
So I'm there, and we're meeting like all these kind of really interesting people. So basically, the job is just to give you the. I used to work in advertorials. So for people who aren't aware of what advertorials are, it's basically half of what you read in magazines and newspapers are advertorials without you knowing, and it's basically an ad commercial editorial. So you either buy an editorial box where you basically craft the message that you want to be featured in a newspaper, or you buy an ad space, and then sometimes it's complemented with an editorial box. And I did stuff like the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the IHT, the Independent, and the Sunday Telegraph, etc. So like, decent papers. And so I'd go around these countries, we'd set up shop, and we'd try and meet the president or the prime minister of the country, and we meet all the ministers, the CEOs, and we try and sell them a shitload of ad spaces, make a shitload of money, and then get out. That's basically what we did. So
sounds awesome.
Well, yeah. But
Can I just say, sorry to butt in, but we're having a massive storm rolling in. One of my dogs is already going ballistic, so if I just disappear, it's because it means I'm fucking drunk. No, it means I'm
hiding.
We're about to have a huge storm hit us, which I've been expecting, but it's so we get power cuts about once a week. So if I just disappear, that's the reason. Wait. Anybody listening to that is like, what the fuck? Who cares? Who cares? This guy's been to Peru, Kazakhstan, and he's met Daniel Craig, and you're talking about you disappearing because of a power cut. Well, fuck
who
you.
Cares?
Fuck you, Baldy. Yeah.
Well, I know a thing or two about power
You've got more hair on my chin, Mark, than I have ever had on my head. I think I've got to be honest.
Well,
but
I'm pretty much going to get there very soon. My dad's got no hair on his head, so it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, but it can skip a generation. My dad had a full head of hair. He was 79. He died with a full lustrous head of hair, and I almost wanted to shave it off and stick it on my own head, but I thought that's a bit disrespectful.
You should have, I think. Mark, you were saying that actually when I say it sounds awesome, you said not really, or you didn't.
No, I mean, yeah, I'll get to that in a bit, and I'll just for Tim's sake, I'm gonna give the quick summary of the countries. But it's like, so I left Kazakhstan, and that was, it was an amazing experience. And keep in mind that every time I was in a country, I traveled to nearby countries. So I went to Kyrgyzstan, I'd go to like Latvia, and so forth. And then
what Stan? What was the one after Kazakhstan?
Kyrgyzstan is like, so you've got Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Afghanistan.
You're just making these up now, aren't you? You're just thinking of words and putting Stan on the end.
No, you
of
just
it
don't
now.
know your geography.
Yeah.
That's it.
I went to Milalitistan, and then I went to Budweiserstan, and okay, carry on.
Yeah, and then they shipped me to Bahrain, which is in the Middle East, the pearl of the Persian Pearl, and it's around Saudi Arabia, so it's on the causeway of Saudi Arabia, and not far from UAE or Dubai, depending where you're coming from. So yeah, I was there for about 4 months. That was ridiculous, going from minus 40 degrees, where it was one of the most insane experiences ever of people not talking any English, me having to imitate everything I needed to eat. Literally, no one would ever smile to me. Like, you'd go up to a place like, hey, how's it going? Like, we're trying to get it. It's like, niet. Like,
How would you imitate a steak? You said you imitate everything you eat. Like,
yeah. So it's
like a steak. How would you imitate it? Would you like?
No, you go moo, and then you show your chest.
Yeah. And then you'd rub your nipples. Anybody that's not watching.
Like if you want to get like chicken thigh, you'd be like, what that? And then you like show your ass, and they always laugh. They always find that funny.
Okay.
I'll tell you which one. The tricky one is B.
Broccoli. Do broccoli for me.
Yeah, broccoli and honey. Honey was a tricky one because honey, you'd have to go like, bzz, and like they didn't really get it. They're like, what?
Yeah.
Like
well, you could eat
shit?
a flower. I mean, you could like suck on a flower.
But it was, and I didn't know what I ate half the time. I'd point out stuff in restaurants, but it was an amazing experience because I'll tell you what. One tradition that I wish I'd kept, which was amazing. You'd go out for a drink with mates or dinner with someone. Every time you drink, they would raise their glass and they would give a speech, and it wasn't just a speech like, oh, you know, so good to see you guys, but it was like a deep, emotionally intense talk. And they've never met me before. Like, Tim, it's an absolute honor to have you at our table today. I can't wait to hear about your stories of your youth.
I know.
And it's like all this stuff. Yeah. And it was an amazing experience. So I left there and then I went to Bahrain.
You take a drink, mate, because I'm going to dive in here. Because -40, I went to Romania once, and the night we got there, it was -30. I felt like the skin was being peeled off my face. I swear to God. I cannot imagine what -40 must be like. Can you actually go out in that without just like...
So the difference is it's all in the humidity. If it's a dry -40, you're fine.
Oh, fuck me. That's like people saying, I'm in Arizona, it's 120, but don't worry, it's a dry heat. No, it's fucking 120. It's fucking hot.
But the difference is I honestly felt sometimes colder when I came back to Europe than I did when I was in Kazakhstan, because it's -40. The biggest bitch is when you breathe, because like you feel it through your nostrils. It freezes your nostrils, and you feel your chest, like a burning sensation through your chest. So you don't spend that much time outside. Like you'll walk from maybe, you know, your flat to, I don't know, like the restaurant or whatever it is. And when it was -40, I was in Astana, which is the capital city. It was recently changed, when I was there, from Almaty, or Almaty, depending how you pronounce it, to Astana. And it was basically, imagine a Euro Disney town. It was like the most insane big towers, and it was so cold, and you'd have like the winds of the plains of Mongolia would like brush into it. So it was pretty insane. So I went from that to Bahrain, which is like the Middle East for beginners. It's like everything. It's got like cinemas. You've got I'm pretty sure you've got Marks and Spencers there. I mean, it was just so crazy that I went from this kind of.
I want to translate Marks and Spencers, but I can't actually think of an American equivalent to Marks and Spencers. I fucking so miss Marks and Spencers. Marks and Spencers is like Whole Foods. So anybody listening, it's like Whole Foods. Yeah, that's the best thing. But they sell clothes as well.
Yeah. Sorry. So, but keep in mind, so I'd been on the road in Lithuania and Kazakhstan, and those are for me. I consider them like, you know, they're challenging countries if you're not used to that culture. And so I get to Bahrain, and amazing weather. That was brilliant. Didn't meet Daniel Craig there. And then and after that, I was sent to South Africa. And actually. For the American audience, if you know a guy called Trevor Noah, so I used to hang out with Trevor Noah in South Africa back in 2008, who's now replacing Jon Stewart. Anyway, so we used to so I went to South Africa. That was I think that is still today one of my favorite countries. It was unbelievable. It was like, I don't know how to explain it. I want to say coming home. It sounds proper wanky, but there's something about your first time when you live in Africa that you really kind of feel it. Yes, I lived in Joburg for 6 months. That was amazing. I met...
Joburg sounds wankier than coming home to Africa, actually.
Yeah, Johannesburg. I met some amazing... I mean, the thing about Johannesburg that was amazing was that I would meet people who were in their 40s who'd lived during the apartheid, so they could tell me in a way that I never really experienced post-Second World War, when you would talk to my grandparents, they were old and they remembered, but they didn't remember as vividly as these guys after the apartheid. And for me, that was an amazing experience. You could talk to the taxi driver, to the CEO of the Free Economic Zone of Durban, and he was a weapons smuggler from Mozambique. And you'd hear like all these crazy stories. Or I met the press secretary of Nelson Mandela. He was one of the only white guys that was campaigning against the apartheid, and he was sent to Robben Island as an example, was one of the only white guys in Robben Island. And this is what he shared with me during my interview. that on one, I think it was 2 weeks before he was released, the guards came and got him, put him in a cell, and he was raped by 5 to 6 men. I forgot how much it was exactly, but he's sharing me all these stories, and I'm hearing all these unbelievable accounts. And yeah, so that was, from a human perspective, South Africa was crazy.
Wow. So you have, basically you are, from my understanding, you are you're traveling a lot, you have an amazing life in terms of, well, when I say amazing is you meet all these famous people, CEOs, presidents, everything is paid for you. You have a driver, you have a cook. Basically, it's.
I started the wrong way round. I started with having like this lifestyle. I was coming from a student, having to this lifestyle, and then it's just been gradually downhill all the way. I mean, I work for a charity, you know, and like, so it's just been. But the one thing I did keep from that experience was like, my dad said to me one thing before I started that job, and it always stuck with me. He was like, "Remember where you come from." And he didn't say that in a kind of like, remember, son, you're just a peasant, whatever it is. It was more like, remember, stay grounded, because you're going to meet people, you're going to go into this circle of whatever it is, and it's going to be very easy for you to lose yourself in that. And for me, that really stuck with me, and I think it really helped, because I would be with like, David Beckham's manager. I'd be with like, I mean, all these amazing. I was 23, 24. I was like, I was really young, and so yeah.
So my question actually is, because I'm sure if our listeners will listen to you and they say, is he crazy? This is what I'm dreaming of.
Yeah,
I would like to travel, I would like to meet famous people, and I would like everything to be paid for me.
Yeah, so okay.
So what went wrong, basically?
Yeah, so I kind of knew, from the day one I arrived there, I kind of knew there was something that was a bit of a problem.
Sorry. Is my Mac picking up the dog?
Oh, fuck it. He is so unsubtle. Honestly, this happens every week. So my dog's going nuts outside barking. So I've written, is my mic picking up the dog barking? Because otherwise I'm going to go and shut the door and bring Ring, because she's barking at the thunder. Every week we have this. I'll like leave him a message saying, I've got to go in 5 minutes. He'll go, what? You've got to go in. It's just like, why am I writing it down?
You should tell
so you're asking for it.
So
what I'm hearing is that you're
right. Actually, my dad once said to me, my dad gave me the best thing ever. He said, never quote your parents. Anyway, I've stolen that from Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid by Steve Martin.
And to answer your question, no, we don't hear them. So
right, well, fuck it. I'm going to go and get my dogs in, because it's about to explode here.
Okay, so
you can take over. So give me a moment.
We continue. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, just before I dive into that, I just want to give the full spectrum. If that's cool, if I'm going to continue on that, or
no, sure. Please continue.
Yeah. So I'm in South Africa, and I'm having a very successful project with my colleague I was working with. Ruby was amazing, and she, it was we had a really good synergy between us, and we also had different people coming and work with us as well. And then they basically made me director. And they made me director. I think I was 24. I forgot how old I was. And my brother always makes jokes about this, that I have this ability. Like, I always try, ever since I was a kid, I always taken on these different personas, these different characters. I mean, I used to have dreadlocks. I used to skate. I used to box. I used to, like all sorts. Like I had all these different. If you took a mugshot of me every year since I was born, you'd think I was like a spy or something. I've had all these identity crises and trying to find myself through the years, and now I've got facial hair. The reason why I was saying that was, I was taking on this role of being the journalist, and I loved it. Like I would sit down and I would pretend to know everything, because I'd research the guy, I'd research the economy, whatever. So I was playing this there's actually still to this day, if you Google my name, and I think it's SABC, interview with SABC, I get interviewed by, that's another anecdote I'll tell you some other time, but I'm being interviewed by this political thing, and I have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. So that's a perfect example of just how much bullshit I was. So after South Africa, I'm being sent to.
I do it every week.
You're not talking about you.
I do.
That's okay.
Oh, sorry.
You're very successful. We know that you're all successful, but it's different here. So continue, Mark. Sorry.
No, it's cool. And then I went to the Gambia, which is West Africa, which was very different, but that was also an amazing experience. And Yeah, I don't know why this is coming out. I'm fast forwarding, and it's funny because in Gambia I was given this mask, this really tall sort of Gambian mask made out of wood, and I never looked at it until recently, and it's got a massive moustache on the mask, and it was funny because I looked at it, I was like, I wonder if that was like a coincidence or if they knew that somehow, and it ended up working for a men's health charity. Anyway, and then the Gambia, I was sent to Cyprus, and then stayed there for 4 months, and then from Cyprus I went to Peru, where I stayed there for a couple of months as well before it all went tits up.
Okay,
so
do you think the mask? Do you think you're meant to wear the mask? I don't know. It's just
no. It was just.
If I'd have been given a mask, I'd have been thinking like, "Fuck, I'm supposed to wear this." They don't like the way I look.
It depends how many people are in the room and what time it is.
Okay.
So it went tits up. So we are
eyes
there
wide
now
shut.
after Peru. Okay, so this is where we went to this entire journey.
Peru.
To Peru.
Yeah.
And so what happened then? So what makes you decide then?
So it's like I had this nagging feeling for a while that it was just wrong. Like from a moral value perspective, everything was so fucked up about this company. Like they're registered in the Cayman Islands. They have different names of companies for each different entity that they collaborate with on newspapers. So basically they have a name like Panorama Reports, works with the Wall Street Journal. Then they have Summit, whatever, works with so they have this portfolio of different companies. So I had a press card and a business card, a different one for each market I went to. There's a picture I've got, I think, on my Facebook page where it's basically, I took a picture of all my different press cards, and I looked like a fucking spy or something, and it was so dodgy. Like they paid my salary as a bank transfer in an offshore account. I never had any pay slips. It was supposed to be paid on commission, but they didn't pay half of their commissions. The worst, I think, when I really got angry with the fact that, so we were the front men, right? We would sell these advertising spaces, and then they wouldn't publish them. And when they didn't publish them, that's where I had a problem. I was like, why would we publish them? I got in arguments. Anyway, all this, I kept on thinking, but I loved the lifestyle and what my brother would call a golden prison. And I remember my parents came to visit me in Cyprus, and I had this 300 square meter flat in the middle of Cyprus. I had a telescopic staircase that came down into a rooftop where we'd have parties. It was such an insane place. And I was miserable. And my parents, my mum was a teacher her entire life. My dad was like in insurance. I mean, they came and they were just like, why would you, like, this is unbelievable lifestyle. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, this is a great job. And, they didn't understand, and they didn't understand what was going on. And so I carried that on. And then everything happened in Peru. I had a really bad breakup with my girlfriend at the time. My grandfather at the time had just been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and I was just like, fuck this job. And so I kind of woke up. It was the 4th of September 2009, and yeah, that's it. I gave it all up. I got my ticket back home. I came back home for my dad's, I think it was his 60th, and I hit rock bottom. I'd been this prodigal son that everyone was kind of like going, oh my God, you must have this amazing lifestyle. You go to all these amazing countries. I was posting pictures of me with like Youssou N'Dour, who was like a Senegalese superstar singer. Like all these kind of like, all this glamorous from an outside perspective that just looked amazing and all this stuff. And inside I was just dying, and I was just like, I hate myself. And so it was a massive humbling experience. I stayed back. I pissed my cash. Like I had a bit of savings. After I pissed it all on like drugs, going out, meeting friends, just stupid stuff. Buying unnecessary wardrobes from IKEA, which cost like 600 euros or something. And then I still remember I remember telling my mum, like, I think I'm depressed. And I love my mum. She's one of the most amazing women in the world. And at the time, she's like, oh, don't tell anyone you're depressed. Don't even tell your best friend. Don't even tell this. No one's going to employ you if they know you're depressed. And I realize now, working in a men's health charity where we work around mental health issues, that it's still to this day very, very much a taboo or a stigma when you talk about those kind of things. And so I didn't recognize myself. I was keeping to myself. I didn't want to see it. I was really overweight. I was 82 kilos, just to give you a comparison. When I left when my first university, I was 58 kilos. So I don't know what that is in pounds, but it's like it's like 20 kilo difference. So I came home.
£50.
Yes, that's something like that. I mean, there's pictures. If you go on, I think it's still it's like mylifeinshape.com. I think it is. You can see pictures of before and after and that stuff. And anyway, so I get invited for a dinner, because that's the great thing about going back home and going close to home, that you get your parents, you get homemade meals, which I hadn't had in a while. And my mum had invited a friend called Roya Thurdos, who's a coach, and she was a family friend. And my mum literally goes, I walk in, my mum goes, Roya, Mark's depressed, fixed him. And then she said, Mark, Roya's going to fix you. She's a coach or life coach or something. And that's how I was introduced to actually, the CTI proactive coaching thing. And she kind of laughed and said, what's up? And we had a quick chat, and she didn't really say anything. And then that year, a few months later, I broke my knee in an MMA amateur tournament, and again, it was all buggered. And then she basically took me on as a client, and that's where, as corny as it sounds, that's when everything changed. Everything really changed.
I just want to say a couple of things. First of all, if you'd have been given a Walter PPK, I think things would have been different. I
didn't hear a Walter what?
In all seriousness, sorry, that's the.
I didn't even hear what you said.
No. I say if you'd been given a Walter PPK along with all your cards, because that's the gun that James Bond was. It sounds like you were a spy, but it's interesting. I want to come back. I actually want to be serious for a moment, because the whole depression thing, I've written probably 3 or 4 blog posts now, and I think the last one was depression, shout it from the rooftops, because it just fucks me up. I'm fortunate. I suffer from generalised anxiety disorder. Unfortunately for me, meditation and also the techniques that I've learned through coaching help me to recognise that sooner and deal with it. And so I'm fortunate that I've not had to deal with depression. But when I look back now, I see that my mum did. It's a lot more common with women. But I just hate the fact that it's a stigma, because it's not visible. Nobody says when you've broken your arm, pull yourself together. It's sure nobody says when and I'm hoping still Mark's there, but we're going. But nobody says, when you've got cancer, well, just get better. But with depression, it's kind of like this thing where, because people can't see it, and it's not that easy to understand, that therefore it must be easy to cure. It must be easy to just say, well, you know what, you just need to cheer up. You just need to pull yourself together. But it's serious though, Olivier. I know you're laughing in a sense of agreeing with me. I know you're not laughing at me. I know, but that's the kind of deal with depression.
No,
it's like.
Yeah, no, I know exactly, because this story, and at the same time I'm trying to multitask, because we've just lost Mark on the recording. Because I laugh because it reminds me of one conversation from. I work for this big company right now, and so far we have released about 21,000 employees, in my company. And I remember
released. You mean fired?
I mean, let go, basically, And
okay, sorry. Yeah.
And the moral of the company is down the drain, right? It's just like it's so heavy. Everyone is just sad, and the guys just said, this big manager came to us in the meeting, and they say, "Oh, guys, it's over now. Cheer up, chin up." And okay, so it's not depression, but I hear what you said, Tim. It's not because you just say, "Okay, you know what? Just think about something else, think positive, and everything will went fine." It's so much deeper than that, right?
So, guys, full disclosure, I didn't hear anything of the last.
Basically, Mark, we were just talking about depression, about the way that people treat it as though just because they can't see it, it's just like, the short version is, oh, just cheer up. And it's like, you don't tell a cancer patient, my wife's an oncologist, they don't just say, I'll just get better. And it's kind of, because it's not visible, and it fucks me off massively that there's still such a stigma about it, because it's so complicated, and and it's like, I'll give you an example. So about a year ago, there's a guy called Junius Seau who was voted into the Hall of Fame for American football. He played for 17 years or whatever. And one of the greatest players to ever play the game, he committed suicide. He put a shotgun to his head. I think he
so I'll tell you afterwards. I mean, just so you know, the actual the way of talking about suicide is there's actually a whole thing about. I don't know if you've heard about this, but when it comes down to suicide, the word commit is now being removed because commit is actually down to the crime of suicide.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Point. Yeah. No. And thanks for that. But okay, so he suicided himself. yeah. But the point is, people will say like it's so selfish to his family and that, and I was like, you've got to understand, people in that position aren't thinking the same way as normal people are. They're looking through a different lens. Often they think they're helping the people that are closest to them, but because they feel they're a burden. And it's almost like going to, you decide you want to go and buy a red shirt and you put on a pair of blue tinted glasses. And it's like, you're not, it's like everything you look at is blue tinted.
I remember this when one of our mates took his life when we were a bit younger. And I remember we didn't understand it. We couldn't understand it. And my dad was there. And I think he said something like, don't judge him. When you're in that stage, you cannot rationalize with how he was because you're not rationalizing your whole body. Of course not. Your instinct is to survive. If I threw a baby that sounded weird. If I threw somebody in a swimming pool,
he's trying to complain about something you've done. Oh my God!
Hypothetically speaking, imagine if I were to take a baby and threw it. So if I threw someone in a river, they'd try and swim instinctively. It doesn't matter how old they are. You just try and survive. And the moment where that disappears, it's a whole different ball game. You cannot, so 100% agree with you. And actually, I had a guy come on my show called Shea Emery. He plays American football, but in Canada, so Canada football, and he's an all-star linebacker, etc. He suffered depression almost his entire life and mental health issues. He was abused as a child, and he's just given a TED. I really recommend you guys to check it out. Actually, TEDx talk. And we talked about this. We talked about sort of mental health issues, and this is what he does now. He takes men and young men, takes them into the wood, does very manly stuff like throwing axes and cooking.
Takes men into a wood.
And does very manly.
He takes men into a wood and does manly things to them.
Yeah. He does. I mean, he does counterbalance like yoga and meditation stuff in the middle, so it's all good. But so totally. I mean, and looking back at it now. It's interesting because I didn't have any suicidal tendencies. I never had any of those kind of thoughts. I just wasn't myself. It's exactly what you said. You've got a new lens. You don't recognize yourself. You don't want to be social. I was eating. I wasn't exercising, and I couldn't get out of bed. And the biggest thing that changed for me is I discovered MMA, which is mixed martial arts. And that also.
I think I say MDMA.
Yeah. I discovered MDMA, and my life changed. There's some fucking elephants, and I was
taking ecstasy. I was like, woo! Or Molly, as they call it over here, every weekend.
Yeah.
Actually, I want to ask you about that actually, because you're saying you took drugs, and I went through a phase in my late 20s where I did a lot of ecstasy, or they call it Molly or MDMA over here, and. I've got to be honest, I loved it, and I am definitely not condoning taking drugs at all. I don't think it's a wise idea for anybody to do it, because I think if you're prone to depression or certain things, then it's going to exacerbate it, it's going to make it worse. And, I know a lot of people that did it, and they're all fine now. It was a phase we went through. How did it affect you? Did it?
Well,
or was that the drugs we were talking about? You may be talking about coke.
No. So to be honest, I realised that when I said I call it drugs, probably too influenced by my mum, calls everything drugs. But no, I just smoked a shitload of weed, and I was never into, I probably experimented with that kind of drugs, like maybe at uni and maybe once, But I was such a hyperactive kid, and I never really felt, for me personally, the kind of that edge. And weed was the thing that calmed me down. Like weed would just calm me down. But the problem is exactly what you said. It exasperated that whole laziness, that whole kind of like when you kind of introspective and you stop kind of. I was such an extrovert my entire life, and this phase I was such an introvert. I was doing like I think I wrote about this in the book, which is around. I think I did every single online test that you could imagine. What's my life? what am I passionate about? How to do the work you love? How to stop being a miserable, depressed asshole that just hates fucking life? And I read all these kind of.
Is that an official test? How to be?
We should create this one. We should create.
Yeah,
this
we
one.
should actually. I think that domain name may still be available, so I think we should go and grab it. Yeah.
.com. I think you should get it now. And yeah, and we know what a combination of coaching with Roy and a combination of me actually moving my body and the thing I loved about mixed martial arts was that first of all the guys were training with great guys. There's a sense of community. It wasn't at all the fighting in your face. And I got physical. I really did. And for me, and I still to this day, I'm exploring this. There's a primal impact that happens when I move my body. May it be dancing, exercising, whatever it is. From a visceral point of view, I feel it. And it's so important for me to move my body. And I think, when you talk to doctors about, maybe when it comes down to chronic diseases, cancers, mental health issues, the best remedy they can all agree on is exercise. I mean, that by far is it's the best thing you can do when you feel down. Move your body, go for a run, go for a walk, whatever.
As it was big movements at the moment. Well, first of all, I'd add meditation into that as well. I think the two go hand in hand. But there's a big movement at the moment to actually, I've got a couple of clients where I talk to them where they stood up, because that thing where our bodies aren't used to be sitting down all the time. So when we stand up, it's like I've had all sorts of neck and spinal issues, and and I'm pretty sure that's due to the fact that my body isn't used to be sat down in front of a computer typing and doing all this shit.
100%.
We had hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, and we're now trying to change it in a really short, from an evolutionary standpoint, a really short period of time. We're trying to, say, okay, well, we can do this now, and it's comfy sitting on a chair, and it's nice and what.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's this
I've got two vertebrae missing because of it. Anyway.
Yeah, no, there's a cliche going around which is sitting is the new smoking. It's like they say, like you could reduce your chances of type 2 diabetes, chronic diseases, and certain types of cancer by up to 50%. Just
and you can save on chairs. Just think of the money you can save.
You can save on chairs. You can save on just like couches. Can you imagine everything? Beds. Fuck it. You might as well just sleep standing at that stage.
Actually, I can see like a ad there. Just prevention advertisement to say 200,000 years of evolution, and we can have a picture of Tim, in front of his Mac, just to say this is what happens. Please stand up.
Yeah, this is what after. And the after, and then we have a before. Somebody looking really healthy or whatever. But it's funny you say about sleeping, standing up. I've actually got a friend who fell asleep at a party. I've seen him do it twice, standing up. I mean, I have trouble falling.
That's my classic move at a bar.
So Mark, I wanted to ask you something actually, because now you work for Movember, right? Movember? Can you explain a little bit?
Yeah. So the quick jump is that so I started a business with a friend shortly after that period called Mr. Taylor. We used to do online tailoring suits. We stopped that after 2 years. I still get fucking inquiries by a bunch of MBA students asking me tips about how to do an online tailoring suit company, because we were published in the Wall Street Journal, so my name still comes up for some reason.
Sorry, what company? Tailoring suits, did you say?
So yeah, we basically, my best mate lived in China at the time, and he basically said, you need to come out here. When I was living in Kazakhstan, I went to see him in April 2000, I forgot, whatever, 2007 something, or 2008. And he said, come and check this out. And I went, and we basically saw a massive hole in the market that wasn't being met around designing and tailoring suits in China and shipped over to Europe.
Okay.
And so
I wasn't sure if I'd heard you.
Yeah,
right.
So we did that for a couple of years, and then I joined a business school called INSEAD. It's like a top graduate business school that's based in my hometown, Fontainebleau. And I started, kind of the bottom of the chain, and then I got, promoted, and I was advising sort of CEOs and chairmen about listening to their life, basically. And they were just talking to me about their problems and what their aspirations were, what their challenges were. And so I was advising them, and there's actually a funny story where I walked in front of a sign that had a thing called Entrepreneur Pitching Lab. And I walked in, and I was the only one that wasn't a student. They're all MBA students. And INSEAD, I personally think that INSEAD is a bit of a snob complex, where they're very kind of like arrogant a little bit. And so they're all there, and there's the massive panel of investors, business angels, and VCs, and they're practicing to pitch in front of them. So all these MBA students are like pitching these ideas. Some ideas, don't get me wrong, are good, maybe even great, but they had zero personality, and I just thought they were really awkward. And so then he goes, is there anybody in the room that would like to give it a shot? And I'm looking around and going, fuck, I should have prepared something for Mr. Taylor. And I just raised my hand, like, you know, I didn't know what I was doing. And the guy goes, okay. And like, you know, I have no idea what I'm doing. And he gave me that Yoda, I think is it Yoda that said, do or do not, there is no try, something like that. Anyway, he gave me that quote.
Yeah, total bullshit. I fucking hate that quote. Well, of course you can try and not do it. You know, it's bullshit. But I know what you mean. Sorry, it's just a personal.
No, and so I come down and I'm in front of these guys and I basically said, all I did was I told the story of Mr. Taylor. I just told them why we started it, and by the end of it, they were joking and they were like, all right, can we do a group order? Can we negotiate for 5 suits? And I was laughing and they're like, no, you don't understand. We're giving you a cell. Take it. And so a guy came at the end, gave me his business card and said, I want to invest 30,000 euros in your business. I need to meet your partner. So he met my partner in China. And then we pulled the deal because he was too aggressive as an investor. We weren't interested. But that was a great experience, just to show how much bullshit takes you. Because the Wall Street Journal, a journalist called me and interviewed me about our company. I feel so bad because it's the first time I've come clean publicly on this. And she called me up, and and she starts asking me questions about Mr. Taylor. And I'm like, yeah, totally, no, because we didn't have a website. So she said, but I can't find a website. I was like, oh no, it's down. It's down because we had so much demand, we had to shut it down to sort of renovate it, and we had to have a bigger database. And she interviews me.
I love it.
And I kid you not. We were the only online tailor company featured across the global edition, America, Europe, Asia, of Mr. Taylor. And we had like a quarter page, and we had like a single. I called my mate. I was like, "We need to have a fucking website up," and we lost. I don't know how many thousands of business probably opportunity there. So that was a great example of like PR is good until it's not. Yeah,
I've got a really important question. This is crucial. This is crucial to the whole interview.
Hold on.
Because I think I'm going to get cut off through this lightning storm. So, this is the deal, okay? It's the World Cup final. England are playing France.
I knew you were going to say that. Tim, how many times have you asked that question?
Who are you going to...
I was expecting an original question. Come on, Tim.
I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. You've never been asked it. You've never been asked it by me. Okay, it's a Davis Cup final. I don't care. It's a World Cricket Cup final. You know, not that France are going to do that. Or it's a World Rugby Cup final. I don't care. Who do you want to win?
Well, the thing that Olivier forgot to mention is by British I'm Welsh, so I'd definitely go for France in that example.
Ooh.
I want to bring in the C word now. We've decided we can't use the C word anymore.
Well, you decided,
but
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, you can use
Charmer.
Yeah.
I like you
Wales?
you can call me Charmer, no problem.
Charmer. That's good.
Rose
Esmore in Wales.
Rose Esmore, so it's northeast, not far from.
Oh God, that's even
Chester.
more anti-English than. It's not like it's the South where it's a little bit more progressive. Sorry.
No. My mum grew up on a hill where she probably had to walk 4 miles to go to school every day. I mean, every time I go back to that village, it's just insane how small it is.
So my dad, before he died, well, obviously before he died, because he wouldn't talk to me after he died, but he used to walk to school. Every time I heard that story, his walk got longer and longer. It started off like 2 miles. By the time he died, he had to walk 74 miles to school every day. It's like
big,
you know, whatever.
It's like the film Big Fish.
How's your storm thing, Tim? You know, it looks like very dark now on your thing.
Yeah, no. It's,
will you die, or what's the deal here?
Will I die?
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Okay.
I mean, Wayne Dyer has gone on another journey, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of Wayne Dyer, I made not a joke on Twitter. I lost a few followers on Twitter because I put, you know, because obviously Wayne Dyer is the poster child along with Deepak Chopra and maybe Hicks, Jerry Hicks about, you know, manifesting and the law of attraction, and I'm like, how fucking good is he at the law of attraction if he's managed to manifest lymphoma? And especially when Jerry Hicks died earlier this year of cancer as well, and he's like a world-class manifester, and he was only in his late 60s, I believe. And I think it's not, you know, it's kind of like trying to make a point at the same time, because I think Wayne Dyer wrote some great stuff earlier on. I think some of his early stuff was fantastic. The latest stuff was full of half truths and regurgitated bullshit. But it's kind of like, wouldn't you manifest yourself good health if you were? Would you? Apparently, he'd had lymphoma for 5 years. You know, and lymphoma actually. You know, my wife's an oncologist. Lymphoma actually is one of the most curable cancers.
So what happened? You posted that on Twitter, and what happened then? You've been harassed?
I had a few people. No, I didn't get harassed. Nobody takes enough notice of me to harass me. I got a few people unfollow me. I checked on my list, but it kind of concerns me. It really does, because a lot of people always, you know, because they posted on his account that he's gone on a better journey. He wasn't afraid of death because now his real journey starts. It's like, is his real journey being eaten by worms? I've no idea, or, you know, whatever. I don't know that there isn't another real journey, but I just found it all a bit of an attempt to suggest, oh God, it wasn't really bullshit that he was talking about. You know, keep buying his books, you know, because we've got food to put on the table. I don't know. I'm sorry, and I know some people will be offended by this. And I actually, when I die, which will probably be in about 10 minutes with this storm that's coming in, I want people to make jokes about me. You know, I was looking at some George Carlin stuff the other day, who's a hero of mine, just a brilliant, you know, comedian. But almost, you know, to me, the great comedians are almost philosophers as well. You know, I was watching Last Comic Standing, which is a series where they bring comics in and it was a semi-final going, and they were all just terrible. They just stood there and told jokes. Great comedians tell stories, they philosophise, and they, you know, whatever. And Carlin said, you know, that the point of comedy is to find the line and then step over it. And also Jim Norton, who can be very offensive. You know, I saw him do a debate with a woman after he told a rape joke, and she ripped into it, and she was like a rape counsellor or whatever, and they had a talk show where both of them was on, Jim Norton and her, and he fucking destroyed her. I had no idea how intelligent a guy he was, and he just said, this is comedy, we have to laugh about this stuff from time to time, we have to take that approach. We're not condoning it, we're not saying you should do it, we're just trying to, like, not make fun of it. I can't, because I don't want to paraphrase him. Sorry, Mark.
No, I was going to say there's a French, one of my dad's favourite French comics called Desproges, who used to say...
There's a French comic, I didn't know that.
That's his recurrent joke with him. He doesn't know any French comedian, but he's a great...
Well, there's a reason why French comedy doesn't export well, I'll give him that. And there's a... He used to
because it's shit?
He used to say, you can laugh about everything, you can laugh about anything, but you can't laugh with everyone.
Yeah. I think I like that quote.
And actually, you know what? Don't let me chomp, because in French it's on peut rire de tout, mais pas avec n'importe qui.
Avec n'importe qui.
That's the original one.
Anyway. So you need to learn French. But what would be your last sentence? You know, like you mentioned, you will soon die, Tim, in 10 minutes, right? So what will be your last message to the audience? This is what will be your last thought?
Take the piss out of me. So Mark will know what that means. Americans less so, because they always say piss on you or whatever, or they don't get to take the piss. And I think my favourite, I just burped then, sorry. My favourite phrase in the entire world is take the piss, because as Mark knows, it can be used in so many different circumstances. You know, like, I like your T-shirt. Are you taking the piss? You know, or you know, it's just like I
think
so it would be like
That's insane.
I want people on Twitter taking the piss, saying that bald-paced English bastard got exactly what he wanted because he laughed at other people. So I'll give you a great example.
And died with
Joan
British
Rivers. Weather. Yeah, well, I'm actually in Orlando, but I'll give you an example. So I'm not sure if I've used this before, Olivier, but we know that nobody's listened to more than one of these podcasts. So Joan Rivers was ill. And they upgraded her status from critical to serious or whatever. And I tweeted, she'll be absolutely livid that they didn't at least upgrade her to business class. I thought that was hysterical. 2 women came back and attacked me and said, that's so insensitive. And I said, have you ever seen Joan Rivers do live stand-up? And they both said no. She was the most brutal fucking comic I have ever seen. Ever. She was joking about 9/11 the week after, because saying I got fur all over. I got ash all over my fur, over my mink coat or whatever. She would rip anybody. She'd rip the old. She'd rip people with cancer. And these people just saw her on the Fashion Police program that was over here and thought, oh, there's this lovely old lady that tells jokes where they're completely screened or whatever. But she was vicious in her attacks, but also very, very funny.
Yeah, I think there's something around, it's interesting because I discovered really stand-up comedy in South Africa, and we used to hang around in like these open mic nights, and that's where all the guys that all those kind of guys used to hang around, and it was amazing. Like they would use the news. So I love what you said to him about a great comedian is not someone he's not like a joke whore. He's a storyteller with like a message behind, and sometimes they'll say something that's really poignant, really like difficult, and they'll make a story out of it. So they would use the news. I remember a comedian making fun of the attacks in India. There was I don't remember the event. This is a long time ago, but there was something about a hotel in India that happened. Either a bomb went off or someone got shot, and he made jokes about that, and everybody was There's a documentary called The Art of Stand-Up Comedy, I think it's called, and I really recommend to watch it. And there's a moment someone says, he said a joke about Diana the day after she died. And he made a joke about it, and he saw there was something that happened in the room that people went into hysterics because it was like, it's our way of mourning. It's okay to laugh about it because it's one way of remembering. And actually, I'll wrap it up on this. I've been terrified my entire life to do that kind of do stand-up comedy or do storytelling that kind of way. And I'm actually, one of the big stretches I'm doing in the moment is I've committed to my friends saying that I'm going to go to the Fringe next year and I'm going to do a one-man show for an hour where I want to combine stand-up comedy, storytelling, and this whole concept of vulnerability, mental health issues, whatever. So, yeah, that's. So,
Olivier, I know you want to. I'd just like to tell this story because it's really funny.
Is it the time that you went to your stand-up and nobody laughed at you?
No,
no. Okay,
no. It's about, you mentioned Princess Diana. So when she died, the town, I owned a record store at the time. And the Elton John released Candle in the Wind, if you remember, to commemorate her death, and we ordered like a load of copies, and we got like 50 or whatever, and they sold straight away. And then we ordered another 50, and people were like going berserk because we'd sold out, and they were really giving us grief. And we were like, well, it's not our fault. We ordered like 300, but they didn't send it or whatever. And this went on for a while, and then all of a sudden we had about 300 turn up, and we were struggling as a business at the time. But record companies, they have either a returns or a no returns policy. So certain things you can return if you don't sell them, but other things you can't. And this was because it was a charitable product, you couldn't return it. Not only that, you had to sell it at break-even cost. So we didn't even make any money on it when we were selling it. So we got all these copies, and suddenly the demand fell off just like that. It just went. It was almost like in a day it fell off. Nobody wanted it. And we got all these copies, like about probably $1,000 worth of these copies of Candle in the Wind. And we were like, fuck, we really struggled. So anyway,
so there wasn't just one person that died that day.
Good point. But so not really the point of the story. But there was a guy in Watford, for anybody who's in England, and he decided. So we were told we got to sell these at $2.99, which was about what we were paying for them with VAT. There was a guy in Watford that decided to sell them at $3.49 because he realised he was losing money, because by the time he'd ordered them in and whatever, there was a brilliant headline in the Sun newspaper, which there isn't really an equivalent over here, but the Globe would probably be close. It's not quite that scummy, the Sun, but the headline was "Scandal in the Wind," which I thought was fucking brilliant. And we just looked at this and we thought, this guy's just trying to avoid going out of business. So all the florists were making a shitload of money from selling flowers that people were buying to make these, put them in certain places. All the magazines were making a fortune with specials on Diane. All these other businesses were making loads of money, including the record company, because they were making money on it. But as outlets, we were told we weren't allowed to make money, and it actually came close to putting us out of business. We're in such a position at the minute, and I just thought...
Yeah, that was my failed attempt of a joke by that was the only person that died. I was actually referring to your business with the fact that you almost went out of business because of Lady Di's tribute song, which was kind of a sweet irony.
Yeah, such a great song, actually. Very good. Anyway. So
just Scandal in the Wind is better than Candle in the Wind.
Story, I guess. But let's. I think we need to wrap up this podcast, because otherwise we will. You need to die in 10 minutes, I believe. You use it.
4.
Yeah.
4. I'm dying in 4.
Okay, in 4. So if we have to summarize all that, because you had this now, it seems like we're going back to circle, because you're going to this stand-up comedy show, things like that. So are you going to this acting career now? Are you going to this what you want to do? Or?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I can't describe it. It's like it's the first time that I'm terrified and very excited about something in a very long time. And I think I've been reading a lot about stand-up comedy and looking, and it's all about. It's all about being real, It's all about being honest. It's all about, basically, this is how I see the world, and you get to judge me for it or not. And there's a lot about truth-seeking, I think, in it. And I am far from being any kind of comedian or any kind of stand-up, So that's going to be a big stretch for me. It's going to be really, as you could tell by the amazing jokes I said all night. I'm clearly going to have a long-lasting career.
I can tell you one thing, Mark. You're better than Tim.
You're funnier than Tim,
exactly.
yeah.
So you know that. So no.
Who are your heroes? Who are your comedy heroes?
It's funny that you said stories. I really like Eddie Izzard. So he's the kind of...
Oh, I saw him live.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
so I saw him live
Brilliant.
in a room which is probably just a bit bigger than my living room, and I live in a shoebox. He was doing it in French. It was when he was testing his material for his French gig. And so my brother and my sister-in-law got me that for, I think, a Christmas or something. And I couldn't believe it. Eddie Izzard was there. He was actually in a pair of jeans and a blazer and a T-shirt. And I was like, where's the flamboyant outfit? So anyway.
Yeah.
So the reason...
Can I just say, I have got to come in. Seriously, I've got to come in. For people in America, Eddie Izzard is the only British comedian that has ever performed to a full audience in Paris and done his act entirely in French. So it's important, because comedy, sometimes you've got to be really clever to get it to straddle that. It's not a question of just translating it. And Eddie Izzard is fucking super smart. So I just wanted to add that, so in case people didn't understand who he was and the relevance of that.
Yeah, so it's like, I've got weird. I mean, I'm honest, new into discovering all the stand-up comedy material. So the ones that Eddie Murphy's original gigs, like Raw and Delirious.
Yeah,
those always made me laugh. I like, Louis C.K. There's one he did, the one with his daughters, the one that he has no idea what to do with vaginas, and it was So those are the kind of guys, because the reason why I love them is that they tell it in a way, it doesn't sound like they're just there. So I saw, what's his face, Boyd, for the first time the other day, a Scottish guy. Do you know him?
Jimmy Boyd.
No, anyway, it doesn't. I forgot his name. Doesn't matter.
Because everybody in Scotland calls Jimmy.
And he basically just abuses the audience for like an hour and a half. Like he just like screams at the audience. It's just jokes and like, I don't know. So I love stories. I love people who can tell you stories. And Eddie is the reason why I love him. He's between reality and insanity and like surrealism. You know when he does the Darth Vader? He does this Darth Vader piece where at the canteen. Yeah. So like, you know, this kind of, that's what
Darth Vader queuing up for food.
He's going to take a tray. Yeah, he's going to. Yeah. So
that. The cake or death.
Cake or death. Yeah, cake or death.
Yeah. Do you want cake or death? I'll take cake, please. Well, we're out of cake. You're gonna have to have death. Well, I want cake. Yeah. For anybody that hasn't heard that sketch, just Google Eddie Izzard cake or death. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. So that's where I'm going. I'm terrified because, Olivier, I don't know if you know the Fringe. I don't know if it's basically, for people who don't know what the Fringe is, it's one of the world's largest arts fest that happens in Scotland, in its capital of Scotland, Edinburgh, where the streets for 3 weeks transform itself into a giant platform for artists, stand-up comedians, circus, acts, it's dance, etc. And you perform every single day for 3 weeks. And that's what terrifies me, because the one-off thing.
That's next August, is it?
August 2016. Yeah. For the working title for the moment is we'll just say we ate it all, which is we'll just say we ate it all, which is a reference to an American Pie film when the dad walks in and the son is shagging the pie. And then they're looking at it, and he says to his son, "We'll just say we
ate it all." It means
fucking
the pie, by the way, just in case.
Yeah. It means fuck the pie.
Well, great then.
Well, I would say go and listen to some Jim Jeffries. He's my favorite. He's the best stand-up I've ever seen. I've seen him 3 times.
Jim Jeffries
and Doug stand-up.
Jim Jeffries.
Yeah.
And also Greg Giraldo. I think they're the 2 greatest stand-ups.
And stand-up as well.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome.
Cool, man. Well, I think we need to wrap this up because I think it's the longest podcast that we ever had, you know, with all your story.
Mark, I didn't want you on.
Yeah, by the way.
And I've really enjoyed talking to you. Seriously. I was like, I don't know who this guy is. I've really enjoyed talking to you. So, thank you. Well, firstly, I fucking hate you for proving Olivier right.
Like always.
But
Sorry.
But secondly, I've really enjoyed hearing your story, and it's been fascinating. I hope the people listening enjoyed it as well.
Sure, appreciate it. Well, thanks, guys, for having me on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark, for all this. And,
you're welcome.
And please, for the listeners, well, I don't think that we have listeners at this moment, now. After 1 hour and 20 minutes, of course not, we don't have it. So it's not the point for me to say please subscribe, because there's no point. I would say buy the book, you know, because I think your book is available. It can be bought on the website.
It's on Amazon. But to be fair, like, instead of buying my book, just do something. You know, it's like the one thing that I always tell people is just like, books are great, and you know, this is the reason why I've never sold any books, because I'm the worst self-publicist ever. And I'm just like, yeah, the book's there, it's on Amazon, but really, just go out there and do something. You know, that's what I want to. That's what I want to see. Even if it's do something. I don't care what it is. Well, actually, no.
So don't buy Mop's, but buy mine. but you know, seriously, I'm in massive agreement with that. People buy books and then they do nothing with the information. Yeah, information is fucking useless if you don't act on it.
But you know, I'll just wrap up with this. The reason why I wrote that book was because I would tell the same story over and over again. I would give talks about it. People would ask me the same questions all the time, which was like, how did you come up with this video CV? How did you land your dream job? Blah, blah, blah. And I thought, right, well, I've got this great idea. I'm going to write this book. I'm going to put all my heart into it. And then everyone's going to be able to read it and take action. Well, no. I think my mum read it. And I think, like, you know, I'm definitely not going to retire my royalties on my book. Oh, yeah, Olivia, you read it. Thank you. But more than that, it's like people take action on it, yes or no. But it's like I could go on another whole hour about this, about just, you know, and actually and I know I've got to shut up. But this morning I had Alistair Humphrey on the show, and Google him. He's fucking amazing. He's like one of the British most foremost explorers. Google him. So anyway, so I was talking to him this morning, and we were just talking about this whole idea of you know, what is it about taking action? And he's just like, people have this idea that people are different than them, and that's why they're acting differently by doing stuff. I don't know, writing books or whatever, stand-up comedy. And the truth is, it's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. Like I'm terrified. I cry myself to sleep, and I've got massive vulnerabilities and self-confidence issues like everybody else. But I just decided to talk about it.
You too. So we should all cry together,
Yeah.
you know, like we should.
Me
have
too. We should all sleep together, and we can be thunder buddies because the thunder's rolling in over here. So on that note, I'm going to go and try and.
Okay, try to survive this one, and I need you after that. So try to survive, please.
Yeah, because it's the first time we've had a storm in Central Florida.
Is it climate change? Is it
So Tim, I'm really sorry to say this, but I couldn't leave this call without saying it. So I've heard a rumor that Florida's got a reputation.
What? Yeah, go on.
For being God's waiting room.
Oh, Florida. Here's the deal. Florida fucking... If it wasn't hot, I would be out of here like a rat up a drain pipe. Honestly, it is almost the antithesis of my beliefs. I'm very liberal, maybe even socialist. It's very right-wing. Yes, you're right, it's got an elderly population. Fortunately, the Democrats swung it last time due to a large Hispanic and Jewish population down in the south. Because if you drew a line from Fort Lauderdale north, you're in the deep south. You're in dog fighting country. You're in good old boy country. I met a guy once. I was at a party, and they said, "Do you want to come with us afterwards?" I said, "Why? Where are you going?" He said, "Well, we've got a case of beer and a boat. We're going hunting gators at 3 in the morning." I'm like, yeah, really, yeah. I want to get in a fucking boat with a bunch of drunken lunatics, fucking shooting gators in a swamp. You know, I mean that
sounds like a really good start of a sex story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a good book.
50 Shades of Gator. Yeah.
Man, you have your title, man.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay, man.
On that note, I'm going to have to go and sort my dogs out because I know they're stressing out. So thanks, Mark.
Cheers, Tim.
Thank you, Mark.
And,
please save everything and send me the file after that.
Yeah.
Yes. So how?
Oh fucking hell! I never recorded it. Shit. Just kidding.
So
Really.
what do I do? Just put stop and then I save it, right? I'm just gonna fucking this up. Like I'm notorious for screwing this up, so I just put stop.
No, so Tim, you can leave if you want.
Yeah,
I will.
Alright, Tim. Nice to meet you, mate.
That was fucking notorious.
I'll see you at the Fringe next year.
Yes, I'll be there.
All right.
I'm heckling you.
Do it.
Bye-bye.
See you next week. Okay, man. So you need to stop that. File save as if you can.